Praised be Jesus and Mary. We have come to Walsingham today, one of the greatest Marian pilgrimage destinations of pre-Reformation times, of those times when England was perhaps the most devoted to Our Lady among all the countries of Europe. Certainly a great difference from today, when after years of Reformation, Marian devotion has become almost something that seems un-English, that seems Mediterranean, or at any rate, something that is of more interest to foreigners than to Englishmen. But this shrine, the great attraction of this shrine of Walsingham was connected with the fact that it was said to have been built miraculously by the Blessed Virgin herself with the help of angels. And this tale is recounted in a 15th century ballad. It tells us how in 1061 a noble and devout widow wanted to do something for Our Lady. And Our Lady appeared to her and asked her to build a replica of the Holy House of Nazareth. She was shown that house in a vision, and the dimensions of the house were also shown by a miracle, by the fact that the dew fell on the ground, outlining a house. And inside the outline there was no dew, outside there was dew. So everything was ready. They had the model, they had the dimensions, and so the workmen were ready to set for work, except for one small detail, which was that this outline of the house had appeared more than once and in more than one place. And so where precisely was it that they were to build the house? So they decided, well, of all these outlines that have appeared, the first one will be the right one. So there on the first outline, they started to build the house. And oddly enough, mysteriously, the workmen couldn't get the pieces to join together. They couldn't join one piece of wood or stone to another. They'd done this their whole lives, but somehow it didn't. Things just didn't fit. And so they go to sleep, they rest, and the noble widow spends the night in prayer. She asks Our Lady to bring to completion that work that had been begun. And this she did, this Our Lady did, descending from heaven with angels to assemble the house on the correct site, which was not the one where the workmen had begun it. Our Lady's purpose in doing this, in building the house, in requesting its construction also, was obviously to provide the inhabitants of this island with an easier way of visiting Nazareth, to give them a replica at which they could express their devotion to her. For at that time, a pilgrimage to Nazareth involved a long and perilous journey by ship and on foot, or perhaps by horse if you were a bit more wealthy. But in any rate, there were many risks from the weather, from bandits, from disease. All sorts of things could happen on a long journey. And so, there weren't that many people who were willing to make it. Also, you had to have a certain amount of leisure to be able to leave your house, to leave your home for months in order to make a pilgrimage to a foreign land. So certainly, having a replica made this devotion much more accessible to people. Now, the original shrine, the one which is said to have been built by angels, was destroyed in the course of the Reformation, but Catholics and Anglicans both decided that it was worth rebuilding, each in their own version. For even today, having a replica of the Holy House in England makes it much more accessible, makes it much easier. Now, not everyone would believe that story told by the ballad, but that shouldn't strike us as too strange that Our Lady would accommodate her children's desire to come to visit her. All of you who are mothers know how natural it is for a mother to help her children come visit her. And it might seem that building a shrine to oneself or ordering it to be built is not very humble. Our Lady is humble. How is it that she asks to have a chapel built at Lourdes? How is it that she asks to have a chapel built at Fatima? But Our Lady is not at all tempted to pride. In heaven, she is immersed in truth, in God who is the truth. And she knows exactly what she is and what she isn't. Pride would be quite impossible for her. So there's no risk of pride in asking to have these built. And she asks them not for not for herself. They don't do much for her. They don't improve her happiness greatly, but they are needed for us. We have much to gain. We have much need to express our love and devotion to our Heavenly Mother. So it is out of concern for us that she encourages us to build shrines, and on rare occasions even intervenes to build them herself, very rare occasions. We need these places to connect with her because we are human and because we live in time and space. Because the trouble that we take to make a journey, even if it's only 3.5 hours by coach, this is a way of expressing our love for her. It's perhaps also a way of meriting some favor that we want her to grant. Many people, perhaps some of you have come today here asking Our Lady for a particular favor, asking her to grant you something of which you have great need. The sense of pilgrimage as a sacrifice is all the more effective when pilgrimage is made on foot, at least in part, as we walked the Holy Mile. And of course, still more effective, perhaps, if one goes barefoot, as was customary here, or even on one's knees, as they do the last part of the pilgrimage at Fatima. A sacrifice is an expression of love, whether it is as simple as giving up your seat to someone, or as extraordinary as Jesus dying on the cross. If we truly love someone, we will be ready to make sacrifices for him or her. And if we greatly desire something, we will be ready to make sacrifices to achieve it. Our Lady herself exemplifies this in the Visitation, which we celebrated yesterday. What makes her go in haste into the hill country, to a town of Judah, is not doubt but love. She does not need to see a miracle to strengthen her faith, for she has, as Elizabeth says, already believed. Blessed is she who believed. Rather, it is love that drives her upwards, like the heat of a flame causes air to rise, causes anything above the flame to rise. It is this heat of charity, this heat of love. It is charity that moves her, charity toward her elderly cousin, along with the sense that she has some special mission to accomplish there. And so, as Blessed Teresa of Calcutta said, she is the first missionary of charity. The Annunciation filled her womb with God, who is love. And if she bears love incarnate in her body, how can she fail to act by love? Even though perhaps we ourselves do not live up to this example when we are capable of being unloving right after Mass, when Jesus is still present within us in the Eucharist. But the Blessed Virgin would never be guilty of such a thing. She is always loving. And it is a loving deed for her to spend those 3 months helping her elderly cousin at the end of her pregnancy. But she does her even more good by bringing her Jesus, by bringing Jesus to John the Baptist, by bringing Jesus to Elizabeth, both of them filled with the Holy Spirit. Thanks to this intervention, Mary is always bringing us the Son of God. She did it in the Incarnation when she made him our brother. She did it in the Visitation, bringing joy to John the Baptist and to his mother, and she has been doing it ever since. Yesterday's date also marks the end of the month of May, of Mary's month. It is a month that we dedicated, or should have dedicated, to growing in devotion to her, especially that most sincere form of devotion, which is the imitation of her virtues. After spending a month with Mary, or at least after spending today with her here at Walsingham, what should we do? We should imitate her. Here at Walsingham, we are visiting her at Nazareth and recalling especially the Annunciation, which took place in that little house that was later reproduced here for pilgrims. After our pilgrimage to this place, which is especially associated with the Annunciation, and after spending May with Mary, what is more natural than passing from the Annunciation to the Visitation, passing from the quiet of prayer with our Blessed Mother to action in charity for our neighbor? There are many religious congregations that have followed this example, many founded under the title of the Visitation of the Blessed Virgin. The sisters in these dedicated themselves to visiting the poor and the sick and to those in prison. Of these, perhaps the best known is that founded by St. Francis de Sales, the Bishop of Geneva. They take this lesson, these religious take this lesson from our Blessed Mother and go to help their neighbor. And thus May leads to June. The month of Mary leads to the month of the Sacred Heart, which we could call the month of charity, for the heart of Jesus is a furnace burning with divine charity. and we will become a little more like him if we practice charity, if we grow in charity. Mary will bring in the reign of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. In this little way, as we pass from devotion to Our Lady to devotion to the Sacred Heart, but it is her destiny to bring in the reign of the Sacred Heart of Jesus through the reign of her Immaculate Heart. And so let us imitate Our Lady in passing from our visit here, our experience of the Annunciation, to a visitation of our own that we make, perhaps going to someone in our own life that we know is in need, that could use a visit from us, that can be helped by our charity. And let us do deeds of charity that help the poor, the sick, the infirm, but above all, that greatest charity. Let us not forget that the greatest charity is to bring them Jesus. Praised be Jesus and Mary.